look at the calendar. It's time once again for the 13 nights of Halloween with Big Anklevich and Rishoutfield.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fine episode of 13 Nights of Halloween on the That Gets My Goat feed.
Is it on the That Gets My Goat feed?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're correct.
But that's kind of silly. Like, it's not like it's a name to the feed.
But we could say
That Gets My Goat
presents, or That Gets My Goat presents the 13 Nights of Halloween, or whatever you said is probably accurate.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll just go with it.
Thank you for joining us once again. I'm Rishoutfield.
I don't think it's quite the worst marathon ever, but I'm Big Anklevich. Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, tonight is a special night of Halloween because, as promised, we've got a story for you by... Now tell me again why you prefer BD to Big? Just because it sounds more literary?
It sounds like a real name.
Okay. No, I hear you. Big sounds like a nickname.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, some guy putting like Stinky Pete.
Yep.
Stinky Pete Doctor as his as his name for, it's
and it could just be SP Doctor.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds like a real name.
IP freely.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going for. That's why I did BD, because, beady.
Like your eyes.
Yes.
Nice.
Perfect.
Okay, so we won't give much introduction to this, right? Or do you think it needs any introduction?
We won't do much ado because it's got nothing.
Okay, but the story is called...
wait, what did we decide to name it? Just 1 second after we finished reading it. The story didn't have a name, and we gave it one after reading it, and we decided on My Daughter's Balloon by Beatty Anklevich.
Okay.
Supposed to be a scary story, so...
Well, we'll talk about whether you succeeded or not after the story. All right, on with the show. My Daughter's Balloon by B.D. Anklevich. We got the balloons for the kids for Valentine's Day. One for all three of them. They were animal-shaped balloons. A frog, a monkey, and a bear, each holding a little red heart with the words "Be Mine" emblazoned across it. The kids thought they were cute, and enjoyed them as much as you can enjoy a Mylar helium-filled balloon. After all, what do? They just float there and look cute. And that's pretty much it. The monkey balloon died first. Aspen came down the stairs with the empty husk of it, and dumped it in the kitchen trash can with an abused look on her face. She was always a woe-is-me type, and it wasn't a surprise that her balloon popped first.
Oh no,
my wife Janie said.
What happened?
It popped,
Aspen said, in that way that children have of not realizing we're not asking them to state the obvious. She hung her head. Rather than press, Janie just said,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I expected her to offer to buy a new balloon, but surprisingly, she stopped only at offering sympathy.
Jake did it,
said Aspen.
He did?
Said Janie.
Yeah, he was holding all three balloons, keeping them away from us, and mine popped.
She hung her head like adults do when they talk about an actual death. Then she brightened.
But it's okay,
Aspen said.
He said I could have his.
So the frog changed hands, and the monkey shuffled off this mortal coil to join the choir invisible. A few weeks after Valentine's Day, the frog passed as well. Aspen had been outside playing with both balloons. They were tied to her wrist, but the string securing the frog to her broke right up at the top. The string fell limp, dangling from her arm, and the balloon sailed higher and higher into the sky until it was just a speck, and then it was gone. Now all that remained was the bear. A cute little teddy bear balloon clutching its red heart on its chest. Time passed, and the balloon steadily diminished, its helium seeping out. Its weight became more difficult for the remaining gas to support, and it stopped clinging to the ceiling and began merely floating at eye level. That's when I started to notice something weird about it. The balloon lurked. I know. What else could a balloon do? It just floats, right? I thought that at first too. But it wasn't just floating. It was lurking. The balloon was never upstairs, despite the fact that I would see Aspen dragging it upstairs with her when she played, several times a day. The next thing I knew, it was right there in the corner of the room, lurking. After sending the kids to bed, I'd be sitting at my desk on the computer, and I'd hear a soft scratching noise. It was so slight that I didn't even look to see what it was at first. I'd just wonder if maybe we had mice in the house again. But the sound would persist, and at last I'd look around, and there it was, the bear balloon, hovering a few feet behind me, scratching gently against the window. Once I came home from work late, and everyone was in bed already. I walked in the front door and headed toward the kitchen. Then I stopped dead and nearly screamed. The balloon was hiding behind the kitchen counter, watching me. I swear it was. Its little bare face was positioned just so that its eyes peeked over the countertop. And when I hit it in frustration at the start it gave me, knocking it away, it floated lazily off. But only moments later, while I was making a sandwich to eat before heading to bed, I heard that mylar skin rubbing softly against the cupboard right behind me. I turned, and there it was, right in my face again. I would probably have gotten a knife and divested the stupid thing of its helium right then and there, if it weren't for the way Aspen had latched onto it. It wasn't even her balloon, interestingly. The frog was hers, but it was somewhere in the stratosphere, and Kinsley didn't seem to care about the fact that the balloon actually belonged to her. So Aspen had taken it over, and I didn't feel that the creepiness of the balloon had risen to the level that required breaking my daughter's heart, in however small a way it might have been. I should have, though. I really, really should have. It kept on lurking, becoming bolder and bolder, however.
Do you mind?
Aspen was playing in the living room with Kinsley. They were chasing each other around. Aspen had an old sock she'd found under the couch, and Kinsley was desperately trying to avoid having the smell of feet rubbed all over her by her little sister. Aspen cornered Kinsley beside the piano and the TV, and she had nowhere else to go. Aspen rubbed the sock in her sister's face and turned to sprint away, and the bear balloon was right in her face. She screamed in surprise and swatted the balloon away, fell down on the ground, and laughed. Of course, Kinsley took advantage of the opportunity to grab the sock and rub it in Aspen's face in return. What's weird was, I was watching them the whole time. I didn't see the balloon in the room at all. I turned away to put something in the microwave, and had my attention drawn back by Aspen's scream. The balloon had come from out of nowhere and jumped into Aspen's face in a fraction of a second. Balloons don't move like that. Normal balloons don't, anyway. They just drift slowly on the air currents. They don't rush across a room to scare someone. I guessed that maybe the air current created by the girls running into the room must have sucked the balloon in with them. But I didn't really believe it. That bear's empty cartoon eyes seemed to stare at me everywhere I went, like it was waiting to make a move. I started to wonder if it could be possessed, which is weird because I don't believe in that crap. I'm a friggin' atheist. There's no God, and there's no devil, and there's no evil spirits. I don't believe in any of that. But it didn't stop me from wondering all the same. I had seen a lot of horror movies where things are possessed and cause all sorts of problems. But a balloon? That seemed like the worst possible thing for a spirit to possess. The only thing I could see getting a spirit to possess a balloon was if it had no choice. Could it be, though? The other two balloons had met their demise while side by side with this one. Had it been clearing out the competition? And now it was acting so weird. If an inanimate object could act at all, which it couldn't. I berated myself for this crazy line of thinking and dismissed it. And it seemed fine to have dismissed it, too, because the balloon disappeared. For days on end, it was nowhere to be found. It seemed to have given up its lurking ways. Or, more likely, I thought, it's just a damned balloon, and now it's so out of helium that it can't even float anymore. Pretty soon, I put it out of my mind. It was weird that it ever even made it into my mind. That I had assigned some sort of malevolent purpose to a stupid balloon's random floating on whatever breeze it was buffeted by. Silly. So silly. Then, one night in March 23rd to be exact, I really can't forget that night. It's burned into my memory as if it were branded. I headed upstairs to tuck the children into bed. I wish I'd checked Aspen's room first, but instead, as was my habit, I started at the back of the hall and worked my way forward to her room. I made sure Jake was in bed, his laptop powered down, and turned out his lights. Kinsley I gave a hug to and tucked her in, although she was probably getting too old for that soon. And then I went into Aspen's room. At first, I couldn't even tell that something was wrong. I did notice that the balloon was back. It hovered over Aspen's bed, its string dangling down onto her. And Aspen lay on her bed, not moving, like she was asleep already. But Aspen never went to sleep early. She just wasn't that kid. More likely she would be coming downstairs again and again for a drink, or because she just remembered that she hadn't kissed Mommy goodnight, or any other number of excuses. I almost turned off the lights and walked out, but something told me to look again, closer. When I did, I saw that the balloon's string wasn't just hanging limply down over Aspen's bed. It was actually wrapped tightly around her neck, squeezing off her oxygen. I screamed and dashed forward, grabbing the string to unwrap it from Aspen. But it was impossible. It was tied in a double or perhaps triple knot. I don't know. And it was so tight that I couldn't even get my fingers underneath it. I tried to pull the string away from her neck by the cord that led up to the balloon, and I swear to you that the string jerked and bucked in my hand like a fish was on the end of the line instead of an inert, inanimate object. My efforts were futile. Aspen still wasn't getting any oxygen in her windpipe. Her lips were turning blue, and I knew my time was running out. I turned away and threw open the desk drawer that sat against the wall only a few feet away. There was a pair of scissors that Aspen used in her endless art projects.
"What's wrong, Dad?"
Kinsley asked from the doorway. Get Mom, quick!" I said, and I hurriedly worked the scissors under the string and began cutting. It took several agonizing seconds for the scissors to cut through the ribbon of the balloon's string, as it jerked to and fro like schoolgirls were using it for double dutch. But at last the string cut, and Aspen's airway was free. She didn't gasp or flutter her eyes or make any motion to show me that she was still alive, though. I was going to have to perform CPR to get her resuscitated. I quickly checked for a pulse. It was there, but very faint. Her breathing, however, was not happening. I leaned in to start mouth to mouth, when something soft and plasticky crashed into the side of my head with considerable force. It shoved me away from Aspen and onto the floor. What the hell? I rolled over and found the balloon looming over me. It pressed itself down on my face. The thing was trying to smother me as well. I'd had enough of this thing. It was time to do what I'd originally considered doing weeks ago. I scrabbled around with my hand until my fingers fell upon the scissors I'd cut the string with. I wrapped my arm around the balloon, rolled it over onto the floor, and plunged the scissors into the smiling bear's eye. It didn't even make a popping sound. It was more like a deep breath being let out. And then the balloon was flat. I didn't pay it another second of my attention. I got back to my knees and started in on mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Janie arrived in the doorway with Kinsley.
What's going on?
She asked.
Kinsley was freaking out.
Call 911, Janie.
What?
Call now. Aspen's not breathing. I went on with the breathing, wondering if I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. It had been since I was about 15 years old the last time I'd gotten CPR certified. I'd heard recently that the Red Cross had said that mouth-to-mouth was no longer recommended. But what else could I do? She wasn't breathing. Janie came back in on the phone and started relaying questions from the 911 operator to me. What do I do? I shouted. She's not breathing, but I think I felt a weak pulse. Janie talked me through the steps that the operator gave her, and just as I was giving up hope of saving my baby girl, she suddenly took a gasping breath. I screamed with joy, and Janie did the same, dropping the phone and running over to hug her close. A few minutes later, a dazed and grumpy Aspen was given a once-over from the paramedics that had arrived. I took the opportunity to grab the husk of the Valentine's Day balloon and stuff it in the trash can. Unceremoniously, because that damned thing didn't deserve it. Since that day, I'll admit, I have never bought another balloon. And I just can't look at them the same way as I used to. And there you go. My daughter's balloon.
That is what we called it.
I didn't know because the title is more recent than the story.
That's true. I just liked the Shatner-esque way of reading it.
It seems like there might have been a couple of Shatner-esque deliveries during the story as well. And I think you called me on a couple of them, but some might have gotten through. I expected her to offer to buy a new balloon, but anyway.
You Shatnered all over that story, didn't you?
I thought I smelled something. We don't have any time tonight to talk about the story, so we're going to come back tomorrow and we'll do our post-story episode. Just because we didn't record enough of these dang things before Halloween. All right?
There you go. Perfect.
So thank you for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll never make it to 13 otherwise, so we'll see you then.
Sorry.
See you, folks.
That really pisses me off, or that gets my goat, or whatever this is ultimately called, is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Very sad.
Aspen with Y-N-N.
All the children are named horrible names purposefully in this.
McCady with 2 E's. But Aspen like that, is that real? Is there somebody with that name?
Oh,
Froze?
Cat's eating it. I had my story all selected and I hit like a space bar or something, so it was gone. All right.
My Daughter's Balloon by B.D. Anklevich.
You are.
Oh, did you want to be big?
No.
Well, you will be someday.
Someday, after I get those special pills I sent away for.
So the frog changed hands, and the monkey shuffled off this mortal coil to join the choir invisible. The bleedin' choir invisible.
This is an ex-monkey!
And at last I'd look around, and there it was, the bear balloon, hovering a few feet behind me, scratching gently against the window. Once I came home from work to find my wife,
boning the neighbor. And the balloon was right there in between them.
And Kinsley didn't seem to care about the fact that the balloon actually belonged to her. So Aspen had taken it over, and I didn't feel that the names are awful.
Okay.
Right?
I will stop it. But first I will do this.
No, don't fart.
I haven't held the microphone to my butt in many years.
It's been a long time.
Were you supposed to do that?
Okay, take a big breath. Not like that.